The information provided by Trading Forex Price Action to you does not constitute personal financial advice. The information provided is of a general nature only and does not take into account your individual objectives, financial situation, or needs. It should not be used, relied upon, or treated as a substitute for specific professional advice.
Midweek Analysis.
Hey guys, this is a midweek analysis for September 22nd of 2021. Alright, we'll start off with the Nzdusd pair. This is a weekly chart. We'll start off with an overview. So since this move right here, starting from this range right here, was solely based on momentum, in the long term I'm short biased. Right back down to this pivot low right here. Over on the daily chart, there was a strong long trade that formed right here and a weak short trade that formed right here. So typically I will be short biased on the daily chart. However, there is a possibility that this daily long trade already hit its target at a monthly gap level that runs right through here. So in the short term, I'm neutral biased. Okay, let's talk midweek price. Okay, we'll stay on this weekly chart. Let me run it by the setup I've been looking at for the past couple of months. So there was a weak short trade that formed right here. Then a strong long trade form. So at this point, the weekly bias was long, or in other words, price was likely to reach this pivot high before reaching this pivot low. And so I was looking for long trades on the lower time frames. However, at this point right here, there was another weak weekly short trade that formed. So although the bias remained long, at this point, price stated that price is likely to reach this pivot high right here before reaching this pivot low. And then the following week, that target was hit. And since there was no more bias on this weekly chart, price just hovered right back down to stop out that initial weekly long trade stop loss right here. And then as price came down on these levels, there was no bias. However, at this point right here, roughly a month and a half ago, there was a strong long trade that formed. And then moreover, 1 month ago at this area right here, there was a weak short trade that formed. And so if you recall, I was mentioning if I get a pullback to these 69.50 to 69 levels, I'll be willing to take a long entry with a stop loss at this pivot low right here and its main target at this pivot high. However, due to the possibility that this last daily long trade already hit its target at a monthly gap level that runs right through here, I decided to stay on the sidelines and not take this pullback long entry. Alright, so let me go ahead and explain this setup in more detail. So let's go over to the daily chart. Alright, so on this daily chart, that strong long trade that formed was right here. And that weak short trade that formed was right here. So again, I was mentioning if I get a pullback to these 69.50 to 6900 levels, I'll be willing to take a long entry with the stop loss at this pivot low right here and its main target at this pivot high. However, because there is a possibility that this long trade already hit its main target at a monthly gap level that runs right through these levels, I decided to stay on the sidelines for this setup. Now that said, the price action on this daily chart as well as the 4-hour chart is still stating that this long setup is still intact. So let me show you those elements in price that are telling me that this trade setup is actually still legitimate. Now first of all, on this daily chart, typically when a trade's target has been hit, for example at this monthly gap level, price will usually stomp out the short traders that took this short entry at this pivot high right here. However, as you can see, price did not reach those levels to stop them out. So in other words, if this monthly gap was in fact a target for this long trade, price will pull all the way back to stop out the short traders stop loss levels right here, and then begin to pull back all the way down to stop out the long traders that are still in that long trade. However, that was not the case, and price did not stop out those short traders. Now that's the first sign on this daily chart that shows that this long trade is still intact. Okay, and moreover, there's another sign on the 4-hour chart, so let's go over that. Okay, so on this 4-hour chart, that daily long trade formed in this area, and that short trade formed in this area. Now on this 4-hour chart, there was actually a short trade that formed here and a long trade that formed right here. Now if that monthly gap was in fact a target with this last daily long trade that formed in this area, this 4-hour short trade stop loss level, which would be at this pivot high right here, should not have been stopped out. And typically this short trade would be a good entry for a short trade. Now that's if this monthly gap was in fact a target for the last daily long trade. However, as you can see, price stopped out that 4-hour short trade stop loss level at this pivot high. So this is actually another sign on this lower time frame that states that this long trade is still legitimate. Alright, so the question becomes, then why am I not taking this long trade? Now, number one is that I'm not trading aggressively at this point. But number two, I found myself pondering about this setup for about 30 minutes, which is a long time in terms of analyzing one currency pair setup. And as a general rule, if I'm taking that much time to analyze a setup, that setup itself is not worth taking, simply for the reason that for me, it's quite complicated. And there's always other pairs that have easier setups that I can trade. Okay, so let me go ahead and show you this monthly gap level I'm talking about. Let's go over to the monthly chart. Alright, so on this monthly chart, that gap level I was referring to is this gap right here. So the upper level of this gap is at 0.7188, and the lower level is roughly at 0.7143. Okay, so at this point, the only way I would be taking a long entry is if price pulls all the way down to these levels right here, where many strong price elements exist. For example, this trend line from this pivot to this pivot right here, a horizontal trend line right here that's attached to this pivot right here, or more of this medium-sized gap right here. So the price could pull right back down to these levels again and make a strong daily long trade. At that point, I'll be willing to take a long entry for price to at least reach that gap level I was mentioning earlier right here. Alright, so actually let me just show you the levels for this bottom gap also. Okay, so the upper portion of that gap will be 0.6913 and the lower end will be 0.6817. Alright, so let me just sum this up on the daily chart. Alright, so on this daily chart, there was a strong long trade that formed right here and a weak short trade. So typically that will state that price is likely to reach this pivot high before reaching this pivot low. And thus I was waiting for a pullback to these 6950 to 6900 levels for a long entry. However, due to the possibility that this daily long trade hit a monthly gap target at this level right here, I will not be taking this pullback for a long entry. However, that said, on this daily chart and the 4-hour chart in these areas, there are signs that are still stating that this pullback long entry is still intact. However, due to the fact that I find myself pondering about this setup for an extended period of time, I will not be taking this long entry. Now, moreover, the only way I would be taking a long entry is if price pulls back to those strong monthly levels at these levels right here and makes another strong long trade. In that case, I'll be willing to take a long entry with the stop loss at the hypothetical long trade's pivot low and its main target at the monthly gap level I was referring to earlier. Okay, and moreover, I'm always looking for any compact short price action to form on lower time frames, which shows strong short strength. For if this compact short price action does form, even if this setup is still legitimate and is in fact a good long setup, if this compact short price action forms, that will change this daily bias into short. And moreover, I'll be willing to take a short entry with a stop loss at that compact short price action's pivot high and its main target at the last daily long trade's pivot low right here. Alright, so that's it for the midweek analysis. I hope you guys have a great week. And thanks for watching. Okay, bye.